I was desperate to control it and to keep it going. And what life taught me in that moment was, control is a complete illusion. You don't know what's coming. And it also taught me, I look at young dads with their children now, and I look at them and I just pray, just just be with your kids. And when I say be with your kids, like properly be with your kids and listen hard, because 90% of what they say is probably just about what they want for lunch or dinner or breakfast or whatever it may be. But there's maybe even if it's 1%, which is golden, that I don't think I'd listened out hard enough for. And I think in that not listening, in that not being fully present in those moments, it's almost like the gaps between the chat, to observe harder and to be more fully present.
Well, why don't you start off telling us like what was life before coming into true freedom? Like, yeah, what was life like?
Thanks, Gary. I think, like I said in the intro paragraph that I sent to you, there was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I was sitting with my wife. It's such a pivotal memory I have where I said to her, yo, life couldn't be any more perfect. And so from the outside at that point, I had two young kids. This is pre-COVID. I was a senior leader within a business. There's, 22,000 people in the business. I look after people and sustainability in that business. I live in a beautiful, beautiful area. It was nestled between mountain and 5 minute walk to the beach, next to a reserve. In fact, there was eland at the reserve fence this morning when I went down to the beach. And so from the outside, everything looked amazing, and actually felt amazing too. I've got to be honest, it really did. And what then happened was life decided to start to teach me some real hard truths. And I've had to kind of wear a seatbelt for the last 6 or 7 years since that started happening. And to really get to grips with where I maybe hadn't been as perfect as I had thought, or life hadn't been as perfect as I thought, because I guess I'd missed a lot of what was going on for my children. And that all came up and started to unravel in the next, well, it still is in many respects, but in the last 6 or 7 years. So it went from seeming perfection to complete chaos in a very short space of time, which obviously I'm happy to go into. All the time from the outside, looking like everything was absolutely perfect.
Did anyone have any sense of what was going on?
Um, no, I think when things started to really unravel, there was a point where I had to involve work because I started to have to miss work. So, I mean, maybe I should just give a bit of context there. So, during during COVID, my daughter would have been 13, my son would have been 11. It's probably about right. And my wife was running an organization and she went into overdrive with work just to try to keep the organization afloat and the organization going, and completely burnt out. And the first thing that happened was she went into quite a severe depression. And yeah, I guess I wasn't sure how to handle that because on the face of it, we live in such a beautiful area. A part of me was like, but how can you be depressed? Like, what's wrong with you? It's all so perfect and it's all so beautiful. And as a father, you'll do anything to protect your kids from the outside, from perceived threats to them, from people, from whatever, of course, that's the protective nature of what we'll do. But what was new to me is how do you protect your children or your child from themselves? And I wasn't prepared for that because I still look at that and go, sure, what an experience to go through. That weekend that we did that, it was, as you can imagine, completely terrifying for us. And I remember the weekend that we did that, there was a friend's birthday party in the mountains and there was a camping thing going on. And we agreed that my wife would still take my son because he was completely thrown, because he was like, what the hell's going on here? This is my older sister who's perfect. mean, my daughter is beautiful to look at. She always has been. She's been asked to model a number of times, and she's always with it. When we arrived back in South Africa from Scotland, we always rolled her out to the schools, because everyone loves her and she's the angel and she's perfect and and so and I was very close to her. We still are, my daughter and I are very close. And that weekend, so my son and my wife went away and I was home alone because I said I can't go because just in case my daughter needs anything or anything else and I can be here. And that was one of the most profound weekends of my life, actually, Gary. I it took me down to a low that I cannot even describe. I remember lying on the kitchen floor and I don't know how long I lay there for. It might have been hours and just couldn't move. I was literally in the fetal position. And what was beautiful, I had already been involved with this work for a while by that stage. And what I remember being really powerful was don't fight the grief. Whatever you do, don't fight the grief. Allow it, allow the grief. And I remember lying on the kitchen floor and just being completely consumed by the most intense grief I could ever come across because at that point I didn't know whether my daughter would even make it through. Um, and I allowed that grief. And that weekend, for the first time in a long time, I wasn't a husband, I wasn't a father, I was just Andrew on my own in the house completely consumed by this grief. And I remember at one point I had to rouse myself and I thought, okay, I need the ocean. I need to get down to the ocean, which is only a 5-minute walk. And I put a hoodie on so nobody would talk to me, like head down. And I went and I just lay in the sand dunes for a while. And that weekend was one of the most pivotal moments in my life when I just allowed myself to be me and I allowed all the grief to flow through me. Without trying to judge myself, without trying to be too hard on myself, because I think I realized I was at such a low, there was no point in beating myself up as well. And everyone says Andrew's so chilled and we never see Andrew angry. Yo, ask my kids, they have. They definitely have, and I used to get so frustrated with my son because you'd be like, but I didn't understand it. This is before the diagnosis. I just didn't understand, I thought surely everyone should be like me, just go and do it. It's not hard. And how they play it out, I mean, I think he changed school 6 times. He just couldn't function at school at all. He's highly, highly, highly intelligent, my son. And what I'd realized looking back, my reaction to my son not wanting to do anything and refusing to do things, how that played out on my daughter and how much of an impact that had. And how much, I guess, I was trying to control this perfection of life, the so-called perfection of life. I was desperate to control it and to keep it going. And what life taught me in that moment was, control is a complete illusion. You don't know what's coming. And it also taught me, I look at young dads with their children now, and I look at them and I just pray, just be with your kids. And when I say be with your kids, like properly be with your kids and listen hard because 90% of what they say is probably just about what they want for lunch or dinner or breakfast or whatever it may be. But there's maybe even if it's 1%, which is golden, that I don't think I'd listened out hard enough for. And I think in that not listening, in that not being fully present in those moments, it's almost like the gaps between the chat, to observe harder and to be more fully present. I look back and I think that was something that I completely missed. I should have been so much more present than I was. And so,
Andrew, if
yeah,
because right now
yeah,
you're sharing is already you are at a pretty high level of awareness of your own thoughts and
yeah,
compared to the average person that I meet on the streets. If you can like just take me back like before when you started going through like the COVID period, the difficulty with what's
yeah.
going on with your family, Do you have any tools like before you worked with Bodhi? Like, do you have any tools? Like, how do you face some of these difficulties?
Yeah, sure. I probably started meditating maybe about 16, 17 years ago. And I was lucky enough in Scotland to live about an hour away from, it's actually the largest Tibetan monastery outside of Tibet.
Oh, wow.
So I used to go and do courses there and it was Buddhist meditation.
And
So
what
that
drawn you to
definitely,
doing meditation and because again, like I don't know how popular it is. It's the biggest one, but in the Western culture, probably I don't know, like one in 10 people. So it's not the norm.
I think, Gary, I've always thought a little bit differently from other people. And if I go back to my own journey, I think that thinking a little bit differently actually it wasn't so easy at school. What I learned, I went to an all boys school, quite a posh school, and what I learned, which has served me so well growing up, was to be a chameleon. And it still serves me well. So a social chameleon. So I can talk to anybody about anything. I can speak to guys on the street and I can speak to CEOs and I can speak to anybody. And I have this ability to change depending on what situation I'm in. So there's that. However, underneath that, it's a double-edged sword. Is I became so much of a chameleon. I think I didn't know who I was. And I didn't really understand if I can change to every situation, but who am I? I'm this adaptable person that is chilled and gets on with everybody. He's got loads of friends. I'm fit. I do all this cool stuff. I live this adventurous life. I've traveled a hell of a lot of my life. You know, but underneath that, I look back now and I think even all the traveling, I backpacked at one point for 15 months. That was a distraction, actually.
Yeah.
That was a distraction from who I really am. And I have to be so careful. Adventure is a big part of my life, but now I'm very aware that, sometimes that adventure was simply just masquerading as distraction.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to go deeper into myself. And I think the reason I got into meditation was because deep down, I was always yearning for a different way of being on this planet.
Yeah.
And that's what drew me to it.
Yeah, that's interesting because what you shared, Andrew, it fits into what Dom and I were covering in the relationship masterclass last week. We talked about this 5 level of relationships as men, and we often start off in level 1, which is needing love. As a human being, we're the most dependent species on earth that we need someone else to take care of us when we're young. So from 0 to maybe 13, we're at that stage of needing love and getting validation. If you do well in school, if you behave a certain way at home, you get certain love given to you or recognition or acceptance. And so, and then from around 13, 14, you start to go into this next phase of hey, I'm wanting to be like a knight. I want to travel around the world. I want to explore. And so as you explore, and especially with the chameleon, it's like, who am I? No, I just want to explore. It's more about the outer world. And eventually that goes on for different people. It goes on for different period, but generally it goes on to maybe into your late 20s to early 30s. And then you start to get into the prince that, hey, I want to start building something. I want to start to have a home. I want to start to build a family. And you start to like achieve, like, how do I build something more substantial? Or whether it's within a company or maybe start up a business of your own. So that's kind of like fit into the journey. And usually it's around in the 40s. Eventually, like on stage level 3, you get to this, what we call performer love. By the way, level 2 is conditional love. Conditional love is like, okay, if someone does something nice to me, I'll do some love, and everything is about conditional trading. It's not about like unconditional giving. And then level 3 is about performance, like performing love, like everything, like I need to be the nice guy. I need to achieve more. I need to do something to get the love. And eventually when you get to the 40, for a lot of the guys, like Western terms, we don't have the terminology for it, but in the Eastern term, dark nights of the soul or going through the tunnel is the equivalent, what we call the valley of despair is your awakening, your dark nights that you go through, which is what you describe. And if you don't know that this is how the map of the how the the ego tend to navigate for a male especially, then it's like, well, it happened to me. Like, what is you think is the external circumstance so unique? Oh my God, is this thing whether is something happen at work or is something to happen to the family or is this thing? But once you start to see the pattern and you start to anticipate it, wow. It's all of it is just a part of a pattern. That's why when you start to share with me like your journey, like the meditation thing, it may seem like, well, it's random, but as we start to know, nothing is random. You start to see back, well, all the clues along the way, how he led you to this path. So that's what was fascinating on why you started meditating at such a young age.
Okay, so I think a word you mentioned there was about conditional and unconditional love. And I think we often look at our kids and we think we have unconditional love with the kids. Yeah. And I realized in all of that that was not my case. Is that it might have been I might have pretended it was unconditional, but there's not a chance it was unconditional. I think that there's an aspect of I want to bring the kids up in my likeness. I want to show them all the beauty in this world. I want them to see the world through my eyes. Yeah. And and that's a condition, and I think that I didn't see them truly for their own beings. And there's a great saying is, our kids are not ours. They're not ours. We're guardians of our kids. We're there to support them. But they've got their own life journey. They've got their own experiences to have. And I think that taught me unconditional love. And it taught me the depth of my own conditioning to this life. And Gary, you did a video before the last program where you showed the two mountains. And, though the one mountain being success perceived and the other mountain being the actual mountain that we should be climbing. And I realized, in those moments that the depth of my own conditioning to what I believed in terms of life and how to bring up kids. And what at that moment when my daughter was going through that, honestly, how she did at school, anything was completely irrelevant compared to just her well-being. And that taught me unconditional love. When your daughter's in that situation and you're looking at it, it's what would you not give for her to be okay in that moment? And I think that's changed my perspective on life so much. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so incredibly grateful to be able to look at things now and go, where is my own conditioning, not just holding me back, but holding my family back? Because I'm still trying to control something, but it's at my depths, based on the schooling I went to and all the rest of it. Even though my kids went to alternative schools, so on the face of it, I was doing things differently. But deep down, that conditioning that we all carry from our own childhood is so deep that to let go slowly, and I'm still doing it, find those areas where there are conditions attached to my parenting because of the way I grew up, and to let that go so my kids can actually be themselves has been such a beautiful journey. Because as guys and as parents, we often say to our kids, oh, you can be anything in this world. And, the world, we say that, but we're not actually meaning that. We can do anything you want in this world, but make sure you stay at school and get good grades.
Yes.
Well, that's not being anything in this world, is it? That's being at school in this world. And I'm not saying school is a bad thing at all because it serves different people, but maybe it's not right for everyone. So I think what my daughter went through and then later on my son has really taught me the meaning of unconditional love and really trying harder to look at the world through their eyes, not through my own.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful. Similarly, we talked last week during the conditional love. A lot of parents, a lot of couples would say, I love this person unconditionally. Exactly what you said, until they cheat on me, until they do something that's so unforgivable that I can't forgive them. So that's the typical stage that we go through. And it's so beautiful that how you navigate it and describe your understanding of. Because what is love until you can meet what unlove is? It's like, what is light? If the room is always bright and you're a candle and you're light, well, you don't know until there's darkness. You don't truly know what darkness is, and you don't truly know the depth of love until you met the difficulty that is a situation that's so difficult to love and yet you still find the capacity to love that moment.
Yeah, I think it's so true, and especially with our partners. I think Bodhi once said that most guys have got like a bag packed, in the back of their mind. So they're 99% committed to their partner. Maybe it's 90, maybe it's 99, maybe it's 99.9, you know. But there's that 0.1% where you go, well, if she really does this, you know, I can, there's another life for me kind of thing. And I think that 0.1% or whatever it may be holds us back so much from fully expressing ourselves in partnership.
Yeah. So jumping back to, I guess we talked about what were some of the tools that you had in your arsenal before you came into this work, and how did that serve you? You had the skill of meditation. Anything else that the skills you've acquired?
I think being on a quite a deep spiritual path for it's 9 years now. So I think Gary, you know that I do I support in plant medicine ceremonies, and I started that 9 years ago. And I think that that has been instrumental in my life, both when I was first as a participant and I was doing it with my wife. So I just want to just acknowledge that as well, is how beautiful it was to be on a spiritual journey with your partner. That was an incredible experience. And then when I switched from being a participant to actually supporting in those ceremonies, I've learned so much in terms of the medicine sometimes showing me the the blocks I have, showing me what I'm inadvertently doing in my life that needs to shift. I think that's been incredibly powerful for me. I think where I spent a lot of time in my life was I'm a people pleaser. So there were so many times in my life I remember that I didn't do things for myself because I needed to be the dad that was there all the time. Yeah, I needed to be that dad. And so that was the one lesson. Just be yourself. And the second lesson there was being a people pleaser and trying to be there all the time because you should or because it makes you good. It's just an ego-driven approach to parenthood. And actually, I should have, and I say should, and I hate the word should as we know, but really to be, if I had been there from a place of pure love, yeah, because I had wanted to be there as opposed to I was trying to be different to my dad. I think that's a different energy. Might be the same effect, a different energy. And I think I would have taken a lot more time to do things for myself, which would have given me a lot more presence and focus at home. And so again, advice for young dads is look after yourself. It's not selfish. I'm not saying go out and play golf and drink beer with your buddies every week. That's not what I'm talking about. It's do the things that help you to uncover the layers to get to the depths of who you are so that when you are at home, you can be present and you can be true to who you really are as a father and a partner.
Yeah. Andrew, how did you come across Bodhi's work, and what drawn you to him?
So Bodhi's work, I grow this area that I live in is quite a liberal area. It's a very there's a lot of it's a mix between some hippies and a lot of deeply spiritual people here. And I was confused because I've never really fitted in as a guy. Okay. It looks like I do on the face of it. Everyone thinks like Andrew fits in and it's great, but I never felt I truly fitted in. And toxic masculinity is real. And I think I carry a lot of guilt, possibly even shame around toxic masculinity. And then I was moving in these more spiritual communities where I was seeing these guys where everything was equal. All men and women, we're all equal, the masculine and the feminine, and we must all just be the same. And I was like, this doesn't feel right either. So I was really confused. And I picked up a book by David Data called The Way of the Superior Man, which my wife still like shakes her head at the title of that book, but I don't think she fully understands what it is. But The Way of the Superior Man. And that completely shifted things for me. And then I remember chatting to my sister actually and saying, oh, this is fascinating. And she said, there's this guy you should get in touch with, and his name is Bodhi. And that was 2021 that I got in touch with him based on that. And
Yeah.
that's been completely life-changing for me.
Yeah. And I guess what appealed to you, was it the way that he talks about the masculine, the feminine in a way that resonated, or was there other things that he shared that really connected with you?
Well, in our first call, the reason I called him was because I wanted to coach men. Okay. And then he asked the question, have you ever had a coach? And I said no. And he was like, maybe you should start there. But what really resonated with me was there was a couple of things. One, he did a reading on my date of birth and he was like, oh, you love adventure and you're driven by adventure. And I was like, yep, you just nailed it. I still do. And the second thing was he lives, and obviously it's Dom where you grew up, I guess, in a small town close to the ocean. He surfs. I studied law, actually. I know he was a lawyer. I never practiced law, but I studied law. There were so many similarities. And I was like, wow, this is serendipitous. So for me, that was a connection straight away, right there with that connection of this guy who I could relate to so clearly and who clearly had so much wisdom. And then that's where the journey started. So I started coaching with Bodhi, as in he was my coach, before eventually joining the first CMP program, the coaching management program.
Yeah. So then going back to, I guess, what you described, some of the tougher situations happening within your family, how did some of the tools that you've learned from Bodhi and from True Freedom, how did they help you navigate it? Because you talked about that you had a certain awareness of your thoughts, that what you were going through, and you already like doing the work, and how to almost like let go of your identity as a father, as a husband. And you said, Andrew, just allow yourself to be Andrew. The way that I interpret it is almost like even that is Andrew is just a name. It's just you ready to like just like meet the world in its raw form. Um, did any of the tools or the coaching help you arrive at that place?
Absolutely, Gary. And there's so many. I think the ones that I remember most clearly are probably the ones where I disagreed at first.
Wow.
So one of the things that Bodhi said right years ago and was about, there's no compromise. It's win-win, no compromise. And I was like, no ways, man. Life is full of compromise. I don't agree with that. And now I hear myself using that all the time because I hear the wisdom in that. And it wasn't about no compromise. It's don't compromise over context. And I think where I was compromising on who I was as a person. Yeah, in order for other people to probably, at the most deepest layers, probably to like me. Yeah. So I was compromising who I was all the time, whether it was with my wife, with my kids, obviously at work, with everyone, actually. I'm the people pleaser and I'll compromise. And obviously then resentment builds up. And that resentment then comes out sideways. And that was not healthy at all. And I think what I learned there was relating the no compromise to context and content. Is what is my context in life? Who is Andrew? And I'm not willing to compromise anymore on who Andrew is. Yeah? Or this person who's been given this name Andrew, or this essence of pure love that is within me. I can't compromise on that because otherwise I'm just building up more negative emotion or more trauma in my body actually and moving away from who I really am. So I think it was, what is the context of my life? And there is no compromise on that. And yes, we can compromise, but we can compromise on the content of life, not on the context of life. So that was quite a profound teaching for me. I think bringing joy to what I do rather than
Andrew,
seeking
before you
joy.
go to bring joy to what you
Yeah.
do, can you give me an example of what maybe a situation before you understood about win-win and no compromise? Like how would you have reacted to that situation before, and how would you have reacted to that situation after, or responded to that situation after?
Yeah, sure. I think being a people pleaser, being an unaware people pleaser. Somebody called me the other day a people pleaser in recovery. I love that. I love that. I thought it was such a great phrase. But being a people pleaser, I think the compromise was all the time, Gary. It was whether it was about going for a surf, whether it was, if I was really stressed out and needing space for myself and I needed to go for a surf or something, I wouldn't. And I'd stay at home because that would be make me the good guy, right? They would make me a better dad than the other dads who out playing golf, right? They would make me like, what a guy, what a man. And all that was happening was resentment was building up, which meant that I probably wasn't present, which means I probably wasn't looking for that beauty in the pause of life with my children, with my wife, with everything else. And I think what I learned there was about the boundaries. And what I learned when I started to bring in boundaries is people are completely fine with that. If I say to my wife and my kids, look, guys, I need to go away for the weekend or I need to go for a surf because I'm actually quite stressed at the moment, they would be like, cool, great, we'll see you later. And I get back and they're like, well, dad's back. Not a version of dad, but actual dad. And I used to even go for surfs and be stressed out the whole time in the surf because I'm taking up too much time and it's not fair in the family. So, it's the small everyday things actually, rather than giant things, which just meant that I was constantly looking at who I needed to please instead of really looking after my own well-being.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And then you were gonna share this another learning that you got from Bodhi that you applied,
Yeah,
right?
there's so many, bringing joy to what I do instead of seeking joy. We've been looking for land. We took our kids to Portugal I was living in Scotland. There must have been like 1 and 3, or maybe 3 and 5. So it's like 15 years ago to get some land because we wanted to start like some sort of an eco retreat center in Portugal. And we've been searching for that forever. And I think I was always, that be do have model. When we get the land, I'm gonna be happy. When we get the land, we're gonna actually able to live this alternative life, and that'll bring me joy. And I remember Bodhi once made a comment to me. It's interesting what to remember what comes up now in this conversation was he said to me at one point, you know what, Andrew, you're going to find the land and you're going to get land. And then at our next call, you're going to be, Bodhi, I need an island. I've decided it's an island I need. And you're going to go searching for an island and you're going to keep searching. And I loved that because he was so right. And so there's that. So how do I really bring my true self to every day? And then when I've got that, how do I follow the energy, which is the be do have model, and how do I follow that energy? And when I follow that energy, I will start to reveal, and life will start to reveal the path to me. It becomes so much clearer. When I'm people pleasing, life doesn't know what path to reveal to me. Life is confused. We never found land. Of course, we never found land at that point. But what happened was you fast forward to last year, December, sorry, 2024 December. So what's that, 15 months ago? We got the most beautiful piece of land. It's incredible. It's got giraffes, it's got waterbuck, it's got a kilometer of river, it's got indigenous forests, it's got a lot of alien that needs to be cleared. I was just there 2 weeks ago. We're running our second retreat out there, or my wife is running a second retreat out there next month. Why did that not come for 15 years? Is because life didn't know how to give it to me, because I said I wanted it, but it was all heady. It is all because that will make things disappear, that will give us joy, as opposed to truly being in alignment and bringing joy every day and being true to myself and what I want. So it's amazing for me what life has given when I've really focused on that. And then the other one is, which is all linked to that, is I create my whole reality. And that was another one that I found really hard to actually get to grips with. I've got to be honest. I think those are easy words to say, you know. And what really brought that alive to me once was I remember coming back from work and I was super stressed, and I got to the front door and I did some breathing before I went in because I was not in a good place. And I opened the front door and my son just started like tuning me. He just started like having a go at me for no reason, for no reason. And I was like, this is crazy. And then later on, we repaired. We've always repaired. We've always managed to do that. It's been beautiful. And I said to him that later on, I was like, I came in and I was greeted you happily and everything was fine. And he just looked at me and went, you came in with the most terrible energy. And at that point, the penny dropped. And I was like, I'd completely created that. He saw my energy and he went for me. And I created that. And so now that I create my whole reality, I still find it a tough one sometimes. Did I really create that? Did I create my son going to 6 schools and some other things that have happened to him? I guess at a depth I did, so I can do the most incredible learning I've ever done. And has it been easy? No. But this path is not easy.
Yeah, Andrew, like hearing what you just described, how the teaching has helped you and it's almost like easy to forget what you shared earlier and how difficult it was. Was there like how did the transition? Because again, I go back to using the word awareness. Because when you have awareness of your thoughts, then you have
Yeah.
choices on which path do you go on the old paradigm or the new paradigm of the
Yeah.
way do you think? Do you create your own reality or you're the victim, right? How can you talk me through a bit more about when you're going through those challenges with the family? How do you like what was the process like? Was it, there's some time that like as Dom were when he shared when in the opening, do you sometimes just lose yourself that you just so in the story, so in the situation that you completely forgot a lot of the teaching, the framework, and I guess what got you out of it is just a matter of time of after a few days you started to realize, or is it like something that just gradually doing more and more of this work that it start to wake you up more and more and having more and more awareness. So especially for a lot of the guys that's listening that, well, like it sounds like Andrew's on a different plane that life is happening here, but it's not disturbing him. Like, but I'm not like that. I'm going through the shit. Like when my wife says something or if my kids does something, I'm getting triggered. I'm reacting, and it's difficult. And so yeah, do you want to share some light on what that feels like in that transitional period? Was it like just well, yeah, you just woke up one day, or was it like gradual over time? And is there some practice that you keep doing, and then you see the consistent effort started to pay dividends?
Sure, Gary. For anyone who's thinking that like I just able to navigate this peacefully, you should get my wife on here and you ask her that question because I can, and my kids actually. The answer is no. It's a continual roller coaster. It's a continual everyday lesson. There are times where so so when my son used to like refuse everything, there was times he used to get really aggressive. There's times I look back and I'm completely ashamed of how I reacted as a father to this kid who actually his brain doesn't compute like mine, and therefore he wasn't able to control his emotions. He he just needed love and he just needed to be seen, and I wasn't able to do that, you know? And then what comes from that is the real depth of despair of, oh my word, I can't believe I reacted like that. You know, who am I as a dad? Like, this is just awful. So, I remember once he jumped. Actually, I was bottom of the stairs and he jumped from the stairs. He was small then. If he did that now, he'd completely squash me. But he jumped and he landed on my shoulders. And my reaction, I flicked him off and he went flying and landed head first on the wooden floor and just lay there. And I like jumped on him to check, like, are you okay? And him and I both lay there sobbing, like completely sobbing with each other because he nearly knocked himself out, or I nearly knocked himself out. And that was completely inadvertent. It was completely unintentional, obviously. But there was those moments that just took me to new depths. There's many times with my wife, she was in depression for 5 years, where did I react well? No. In fact, I reacted well. I certainly didn't respond well. I reacted badly and didn't respond well. Let's put it that way. And there was times that I was in the depths of how do I do this? I don't know how to do this. And what really supported me there, yes, the practice, yes, the frameworks. Having somebody like Bodhi to talk to was instrumental. Having other people to talk to was instrumental. The men's groups to sit on, although maybe I'm not sharing everything that's going on, I'm hearing things are being normalized. People don't have my exact context, of course not, but we're all human. So no ways has it been that I was able to drift through this and like, oh, well, this is life. It wasn't like that. It's a constant challenge of coming back to it. And I think one of the key things I've learned there, and this was quite early on, is as soon as I go into victimhood, okay, so this is what I watch for all the time. Am I in victimhood with my wife or my kids? Because if I am, I'm making it about me. If I go into victimhood about this, then it's poor me. Then suddenly it's not about them anymore. So how can I support them if I'm the victim? And I think to watch for that, and I still have to watch for that because sometimes it feels like life is so hard. Life is so hard. I carry it all. I carry all my children's stuff. I carry all my wife's stuff. Without me, what would happen to this family? You know, that thinking is all victimhood thinking. And and so that's what I observe for. And then life also deals me some blows on that front. About 3 years, 2 years ago, maybe, I went on a biking trip with my son, a little bit of a coming of age thing. And he went over a jump and I tried to follow him stupidly. And I took out my shoulder completely. You might remember I was in a sling for a while. And I had two operations on that shoulder. And if you look at the shoulder is all around carrying the weight of the world. So again, a friend of mine, and this is the beauty of opening up about stuff, is a friend of mine when I was in hospital actually said to me, you know what, your kids have always had adventurous dad. Now you can't be adventurous dad. Maybe now they're just going to get present dad. And I was like, wow, wow. It was so powerful. I was lying in bed in hospital, half drugged up, thinking, whoa, that's so powerful, and it was. So that's little things I watch for. Does it mean I'm never in victim? No. Of course I am. I'm human. Does it mean I don't get pissed off with my wife and triggered by her? No, I do. But the beauty there is in our relationship now, the other key thing I've learned is around truth telling and really telling my truth. But what's so important in that, and where I used to get truth telling wrong, was telling my truth from a place of resistance or a place of scarcity is not my truth. That's my ego truth. And that's just me wanting to be right and me wanting to be seen and me wanting to be heard. But telling my truth from a place of complete love, that is power. And there's so much power. And that, I know some of you have heard me share about that before after another retreat, actually one of my wife's programs I was on that she wasn't at, but that she brought to South Africa. When I came back from that and had a conversation with her about our relationship is finished, and I said it with such love. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore like this. It doesn't mean I don't want to be with you because I love you. I do want to be with you. But I can't be with you in this way because it's not serving me anymore. And that was probably the most pivotal point in our relationship. And I've been together with my wife. This year will be 20 years we've been married. And interestingly, after I shared on the group about that, I shared with her that I shared on the group to get her view, to say, was I misrepresenting you? And her view was, Andrew, I've been longing for you to say what you said to me. I've been waiting for you. And that was the power of a conscious feminine, a sacred feminine, welcoming almost like my masculine home, if that makes sense. And saying, I've been watching you running around thinking that you've got it and you're the man, and now I see, okay. And I sent her a message from this retreat. I just came back from a weekend retreat now, actually, and I sent her a message on just after I came out. I was very open, very vulnerable, when I said to her, I've always loved you, but I don't think my love for you has ever been at the depths it is right now. And that's the power of truth telling. Life is still hard, Gary. My daughter's not in a good place right now. Again, she was great, and now she's just sunk in, and she is in her final year at school. And there was a part of me like a month ago that was really pushing until I had to remember, with the help of my wife, what is the most important thing here? Is it matric? Is it her getting her school? Or is it her mental well-being? And when you look at it like that, it's obvious, My son is actually in a good place now. And a change in our relationship was actually one day sitting in a sauna with a male friend of mine who said to me, but Andrew, don't you think you're holding your son back by still judging him by not going to school? Boom. There's a drop, a mic drop right there. And I was like, yes. And when I actually let go energetically of school's not right for him, he can't do it. Yeah. our relationship completely shifted because it was never a spoken thing, but it was an energetic thing. And again, it's such a powerful lesson for me is that it's not what we say. What we say, my daughter said it to me the other day. She goes, "You talk a lot sometimes, like you say all these things, but then you do this." And I was like, wow, thank you. Because she's so right. And I watch dads and they say, all these things to their kids about you can be anything, I'll support you in everything. But do we truly mean that? Do we truly mean that? And how do we energetically shift our way of being with our kids and our partners so that they can observe that we are living our best life? We can't tell our kids to live the best life and deep down be holding resentment or unhappiness or anything else because that's what they are seeing. Kids are so open to that. I firmly believe that. They see things that we don't see anymore. So the best thing we can do for our kids is to be on this path, to be true to ourselves, to speak to other men, to bring joy to what we do. And then the kids will look at that and they'll go, there's that's how you do it.
Well, Andrew, thank you for sharing. I've got a question. You said one of the concept it was uh, difficult to really understand at the beginning is I create the whole of my reality. So
Mm,
for someone that thinking, yep, sounds good, conceptually, but then when you're going through life and your life circumstances is not happening as per your expectation, and whether you try to manifest or whatever, it's just like, after weeks, after months, it's still not going in the direction. How do you come to grips with that? Hey, is it like why am I creating these difficult times for myself?
beautiful, Gary. The word that came to mind as soon as you said that was curiosity, but curiosity within. How curious are we really with what's going on? And I think that if we could bring that curiosity into our daily practice to really look at what's going on within, which ultimately manifests what's going on outside of us, we will discover new depths within ourselves and it will change the outer. I think often we say we want things, but within we are holding on to a way of being in this world that doesn't serve us. That's the conditioning I was talking about at the start. And I think when we let go of that conditioning and we truly start to go within and our Dantian is strong and we reveal who we really are and we go on the path, sorry, not we reveal to who when we go on the path of revealing to ourselves who we really are, then that path opens up. But I think that sometimes we manifest in our heads without truly believing it in our bodies or understanding what is holding us back on deep levels of conditioning. So this part for me is about how do we unpick what's holding us back in our practice and also by speaking to other men and being in men's groups. I think that's fundamentally important.
Yeah, and I think you touch on it. If there are unprocessed fear inside, then inadvertently we're drawing that to our reality, either for us to learn or for us to process until that is fully dissolved.
Yeah, yeah. I really do believe that. And it's a process, I think that maybe you might become Buddha in this lifetime, Gary, but I've made peace with the fact that I'm not, which means that there's going to be many days that I fall off the wagon, if you like, is that I do react. I react badly to my kids. I react badly to my wife. And I think the crucial bit there is when that happens is to what I'm trying to learn all the time is to be gentle on myself when it does. Because I think again, when that happens, sometimes we go into victimhood within. We start to, in fact, we play two roles. We play persecutor and victim. We beat ourselves up for not being perfect. And actually, the beauty is in the imperfection. And how do we be gentle on ourselves and learn and grow? I think that's crucial because we're not going to get it right all the time and we're going to mess up. And how do we acknowledge where we messed up, learn from it, and move on with
Yeah.
a smile in our heart, not with a persecutor in our heart?
Yeah. Andrew, so I'm as I hear you speak about your recent conversation with your wife, and in spite of what seemingly is a difficult conversation that normally a couple that may not be together is difficult, but so much love arises from that, both from you and her. And you also shared about your daughter, the beauty that you share in that process. It's like, wow, it's almost like I'm talking to a lot of the mask that we put on when we going through that phase of needing love and conditional love and I need to be this man, I need to be this achiever, I need to be liked. And so we put all these masks on. When you're sharing, it's almost like you've dropped all these masks. So for someone that's listening, wanting to like, how do I get how do I get what Andrew is feeling? And obviously you've shared, okay, be in these groups, be in this learning and do the practice. Are they like just off the top of your mind to cultivate this state consistently? Is that one or two go-to practice you do regularly that helps you? We'll forget sometime, but help you kind of stay in this zone more often than not.
Yeah, definitely, Gary. I am, and like a lot of men I work with, especially I think in these groups. So a lot of the men who are successful in business, in our heads, we are quite intellectual. And I think for me, I need to do practices that get me in my body. It's it's sometimes so frustrating for me just how much of my life I live in my head. And so practices that get me out of my head, I swim like this morning. The ocean here is, if anyone's been to Cape Town, it's the Atlantic. It's today I think is 10 degrees. It's not warm. Okay, it's freezing. So that swim in the morning gets me into my body. I if there's no surf, I will go for a run. I feel like sometimes I get energy stuck in me, and I can feel that resentment and that bitterness, and it's this frustration that's there all the time, and it comes out at work, and it comes out. I just get frustrated with life, and I can go for a run in the mountains, and I think there's a shift of energy that happens when I do that, and then the daily practice. I think at the moment I've got an app I use, and I think I'm on day 85 consecutive days of meditation. And it's not always 20 minutes, sometimes it's 3 or 4 minutes, but most of the time I do try to do, 20 minutes of meditation. And I think those different things, moving the energy in my body, getting into nature is just fundamentally important for me to be able to connect with nature and then doing the practice. And sometimes with the practice, it's interesting. Sometimes the practice for me, I don't get into my body, but I'm able to observe that I'm not in my body that day. It's almost like an early warning sign. It's like, oh my word, I am in my head today. I just need to be careful how I react because I'm clearly something's not fully aligned. So it's not always about like I'm do this meditation practice and I'm completely fine and I'm zen and it doesn't work like that for me. My practice is sometimes, okay, today's going to be interesting. I just need to watch where I am because I can see I'm in my head.
Yeah.
So it's really that word earlier on, the curiosity about where I am each day, and then looking at what does that mean for me in terms of how I relate to the world that day?
And Andrew, what would you say to some of the men that may be new to the work? Like I've done some meditation, I've done the daily practice, I've done it for maybe like a few weeks now, and yeah, I don't see much shifts in my day and how I behave. Like I'm not getting to that loving state that you describe. What would you say to that?
I would ask, I don't know, I see Tom on the call here, and I wonder how many times, if that's Tom Wickham there, if he had gone for, doing his hockey training and after 2 weeks had gone, it's not really working and stopped. I wonder if he would be the Olympian that he is, and I guess the answer to that clearly is no. And I think there's something there around repetition. I think it's a muscle that needs to be trained. I think we've also got to be so careful that our ego, the other thing, key learning I had that came in a session with Bodhi once was I was, frustrated with life and was like, that's it. I'm just going to move to land. I'm quitting my job. I'm going to quit my job this week and I'm going to go because my job also just takes me into my head and I'm just going to leave. And he said to me, that's just your ego talking. I was like, that's not my ego. That's me like finally doing what's right for me. He was like, nah, that's your ego trying to take control. Your ego gets nervous about the changes that you're making and will do everything it can to try to hold on to control. So I think for me is that consistent daily practice. Just keep coming back to it, keep coming back to it. Be curious with yourself. Observe your reactions. You are going to react. We're going to have bad days. We're going to have days where you just think, like, honestly, there's some days I'll drive past a school and I'll see like dads with their sons picking them up from rugby or hockey or whatever it may be. And I think, oh my God, I wish that was my family life. And I get this heaviness that comes over me. I just so wish it would be so much easier. And then I have to like, okay, that's not what my family life is. My family life is hard. That's it. Okay. No, that's not even fair. My family life is different. And I get to choose whether it's hard or not. And every time I think that I want it to be like that, I'm making it hard for myself. Nobody's making it hard for me. And if I'm able to let go of some of my own conditioning, and super importantly with my family life, what my parents, my brothers, my brother, my sister, what they think of me in my parenting style, if I'm able to let that go, I'm able to find a lot more joy. But I still find sometimes I am so on edge when we have family gatherings because we are different. My son is different.
Yeah.
And I have a choice of whether that's hard because I want it to be different to that, or actually if I'm flow. I think Bodhi often says there's two ways we see life as it is or life as we think it should be. And I feel if I'm in the should be, then I feel exhausted because I'm carrying this incredible burden of trying to carry the family to a different type of life instead of actually being in flow with what is, which is also challenging because it's challenging my own internal beliefs, but it's challenging in a different way.